Welcome back to another video. This is Dr. Tarcia Huber, and we are still talking about logic in this video. And in particular, we're going to be talking about compound statements and connectives. So it sounds complicated, but it's really, really simple. So let's jump right in and get started. And we're going to get started with some definitions. So first definition is simple statement. A simple statement is a statement that conveys one idea with no connecting words. So there are no connecting words. It just conveys one idea. And so I thought I had some examples on here, but I don't. But an example would be like, you are thirsty. You are thirsty conveys one idea, and it could be true or false. So it is a statement, and it only conveys one idea, and there are no connecting words. Okay. So that would be an example of a simple statement. Yesterday was Friday. That's another day. That's another example of a simple statement. It's a statement because it could be true or false, and it conveys one idea. There are no connecting words. So those are two examples of simple statements. Next one is a compound statement. So just like you would think it means compound statement, that's when you take two statements and you combine. It could be two or more statements and you actually combine them together. So you take simple statements and you put them together and you use words to join them. And those words are called connectives. And so those are words used to join simple statements to form a compound statement. And some examples of connectives, or ones we're going to talk about in this particular video, are and, or, if then, and if and only if. Now, when you think about connectives, you may think of but also. You may also think of some more, but those are indeed connectives. But these are the ones we are talking about in this video. So we're going to start off talking about and statements. So and statement. So if you have two simple statements, P and Q, then if you wanted to represent P and Q, then you would use the symbols P, that upside down V, Q. Okay. So if I want to take two simple statements and combine them with the word and, then I would use this upside down symbol, which means and put it in between P and Q. So this statement right here, reads P and Q. That is called a conjunction. So whenever you take compound statements, whenever you take simple statements and combine them with the word and, then that is called a conjunction. All right, so let's look at an example. So let P and Q represent the following simple statements. The statement P is, it's the weekend. The statement Q is, I'm off work. So those are two simple statements. Now we want to write each compound statement below in symbolic form. So basically what we're looking at is, how do you write these in symbols? How do you write these words in symbols? So the first one is, it's the weekend and I'm off work. So it's the weekend is P, and is that upside down V, and I'm off work is Q. So in symbols, that would look like this: P and Q. P, remember that symbol means and. Q, because P represents it's the weekend, and Q represents I'm off work. So that's how you will write it in symbols. The second one is the weekend and I'm not off work. So it's the weekend is P, and is the upside down V, and I'm not off of work would be not Q. So in symbolic form, that would be P and not Q, because Q represents I'm off work, not Q is I'm not off work. Here's another example. I'm not off work and it's the weekend. So I'm off work is Q, but I'm not off work would be not Q. And would be the upside down V, and it's the weekend would be P. So that would be not Q and P. Not Q and P. That's how you will represent it in symbolic form. Alrighty, so all we're doing is taking words and translating them into symbols, which we use a lot of symbols in math. All right, now let's talk about or statements. So this time, if I had two simple statements, P and Q, but this time I want to connect them with the word or, then the way I represent that in symbolic form is P, looks like a V, which reads as or, P or Q. So this or symbol is this V. So this V represents or, okay? So if I take two simple statements and connect them with the word or, this is how I write them in symbolic form. This is called a disjunction, and that's the compound statement that's formed by connecting statements with the word or. That's called a disjunction. Here's an example. Let P and Q represent the following simple statements. So statement 1 is you graduate. That's P. The second statement is Q. You satisfy the math requirement. So we want to write these phrases here, or these statements here, using symbols. So the first statement is you graduate or you satisfy the math requirement. So you graduate is P, or is the V symbol, and you satisfy the math requirement is Q. So that would be P or Q in symbolic form. Okay. The second statement is you satisfy the math requirement or you do not graduate. Okay, sounds familiar? Got to pass that math class in order to graduate. Alrighty. So you satisfy the math requirement is Q. Or is the V symbol, and then you do not graduate would be the opposite of P. So that would be Q or not P. And it would look like this in symbolic form. Q or not P. Remember, this little wiggly line is the negation of, which means the opposite. And so you do not graduate is the opposite of you graduate. So here's a little side note. In math, we use what's called the inclusive or, which means P or Q or both. So it could be P, it could be Q, or it could be both. Now the exclusive or, I don't have it on here, but that just means it's either P or it's Q, but it can't be both. So when we talk about math, we use the inclusive or. It really doesn't matter in this section, but it will matter in another video on another topic. All right, next is if-then statements. So this time, say you have two simple statements, P and Q, but this time you want to take the phrase, if P, then Q, and you want to represent it with symbols. So the way you will represent it with symbols is P with this arrow and then Q. So this means if P, then Q. So that arrow means if, then. And I put dots because there's going to be a statement that comes after the if, and then there'll be a statement that comes after the then. This is called a conditional statement. That's the compound statement that's formed by connecting the words if, then. So here's an example. Let P and Q represent the following simple statements. A person is a father, that's P. A person is a male, that's Q. We want to write each of these compound statements in symbolic form. So here's the first one. If a person is a father, then that person is a male. So that's the if-then statement. The first statement is P. The second statement is Q. So that would just look like, P, if P, then Q with the arrow. Here's the second one. If a person is not a male, then that person is not a father. So not a male is the opposite of Q. So that would be not Q. And then that person is not a father would be the opposite of P. So that would be not P. So the if then is if not Q, then not P. So that would look like this with symbols. The negation of Q, the arrow, the negation of P. All right, now here's a side note. That if-then arrow is also, the if-then arrow, that's a typo. The if-then arrow also reads as, implies. That's all wrong. I messed that all up. Okay, so the if-then arrow also reads as implies. That's what they're supposed to say. So let me go back. So the P arrow Q right here can also read as P implies Q. P implies Q. So you may hear that sometimes. This statement implies this statement. That's the same as saying if then, okay? So my side note with my typos, but you get the point. All right, and then the last type of statement we're going to talk about in this video is the if and only if statements. So this time you have two simple statements, P and Q, but you want to connect them, or you want to write out P, if and only if Q. So you're connecting those two statements with if and only if. If you have that statement, you represent it in symbols with a double arrow. So P, double arrow, Q. That double arrow means if and only if. And that is called a biconditional statement. And it's biconditional because it's the conditional going both ways, which we'll talk about later. It's the same as saying if P then Q and if Q then P, okay? And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But this is called a biconditional statement, and that's a compound statement formed by connecting the statements with if and only if. Here's an example. Example 4. Let P and Q represent the following simple statements. Statement P, the campus is closed. Statement Q, it is Sunday. So we want to write each compound statement below in symbolic form. So here's the first statement. The campus is closed if and only if it is Sunday. So we're connecting two statements with the if and only if. So that lets me know I'm going to be using the double arrow. So the campus is closed is P. That's the first statement. And then it is Sunday is Q. That's the second statement. So this would just be P if and only if Q. So P double arrow Q. That's how you will represent that in symbols. Here's the second one. The campus is not closed if and only if it is not Sunday. So the campus is not closed is the opposite of P. So that would be not P. We're using if and only if to connect the two statements. So that's going to be double arrow. And then it is not Sunday is the opposite of Q. So that would be not Q. So not P, if and only if, not Q is how we will write that in symbols right here. Now, a side note for this is the phrase if and only if can also be abbreviated as IFF. So if you ever see IFF, that also means if and only if. So that's an abbreviation for if and only if, okay? So those are the 4 different types of compound statements we are gonna talk about for now. The and statements, the or statements, the if then statements, the if and only if statements. Alrighty, and in the next video, we'll talk about how to connect multiple compound statements or how to connect statements with more than one connective, basically. So using parentheses. So thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next video.